Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Corrine Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Corrine.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, and her name is Christine Woryn, and I am going to have Christine tell you all about herself.
Thank you so much for having me, Corrine. Happy to be here. And about me, I am a forgiveness coach. So I support women who have experienced betrayal in their relationship or marriage, and to go from the space of pain, hurt, resentment, anger, to go to the other side of accessing emotional freedom, emotional forgiveness, that healing space that just sets your soul free. So that's what I do. And I'm originally from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and currently live in Tampa, Florida. And I've got three amazing kids who are 23, 26, almost 23, and almost 19. So yeah, fun life.
Amazing. Yeah. So you know what it's like to be a mother and to be a forgiveness coach, right? We get to have a lot of forgiveness in that area too. Um, so, you know, tell the audience just a little bit about your secret, because I know what the secret is, but let's have like a little chat about what was going on with you and why did you become a forgiveness coach?
Ooh, yes. So what was going on with me? Well, it was something that I considered a secret. I didn't want to tell anyone. It was something that carried a lot of shame for me for years. And so maybe you have other guests that say the same kind of thing, like, because secrets, they just really hit home. Like they hold us so deep and tight emotionally. And so for
Mhm.
me, mine was in my marriage where my husband was unfaithful. And that really broke me to the core. Like that, it shocked me of, yeah, complete shock. Did not obviously expect it. Nobody does. Like who thinks that's ever going to happen, right? We don't go into marriage ever
Right.
expecting that. So that's where I was. And that was the big secret there was a time I thought I would tell nobody, maybe just a close friend, right? And then I would just bury it and it never happened.
Isn't it interesting how, something like that, it was done to you, right? And yet you carried the shame around it.
Like, it almost doesn't make sense. Like logically, having this discussion now doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
No,
It was
right?
not my actions that caused it.
Right. I mean,
So
hindsight is always 2020, right? I mean, because we look back at it now and you're like, oh my goodness, why would I have carried the shame of of being the one to, break the covenant of the marriage, if you will.
mhm.
And but yet you carried that around with you. And how did it affect you? Like, like on a spiritual, emotional, mental, physical way. Let's talk about how it was affecting you and how it did over all of those years.
Yes. So to, circle back to the shame thing that you just said and how it affected me there, I really took it in my first thought. So this is interesting. Like I first find out that this has happened in my marriage. My first thought is if people find out, they will think he had good reason, that there was something wrong with me. So
Mm-hmm.
isn't it interesting? My first thought, that's where the shame came, is I thought people would assume there was something wrong with me if they
Sure.
heard this story. And I know it doesn't make logical sense talking about it years later, but in the
Mhm.
moment, like it just pours in. So I thought, well, clearly I must not be pretty enough. I must not be sexy enough. Maybe not good enough in the
Of course.
bedroom. Maybe not my body image issues then came like, there's something wrong with my body. There's so every part of me, I'm not a good enough wife in any area that you could possibly think of, right? I don't know what they all are, but I I just took it all on that all these things are wrong with me. So isn't that it was huge amount of shame. Like I just took it in like, well, that's the only reason. Like, why else would somebody do this? It couldn't compute that why your spouse would go outside the marriage. So I just thought, must be me. Isn't
Yeah,
that
I think
wild?
that I think with most people, immediately would go to, it's something I did, because the projection of blame is so much easier. It's so much easier to like project the blame back onto you to say, like, oh, it has to be me. It has to be me because
Mm-hmm.
why else would he do this when, a trust agreement was made in
Yeah.
this marriage agreement, and you're being a wife and a mother, and you're at home and you're doing the things and keeping up your end of the bargain.
So
I
I think yes.
so you think, right?
Absolutely yes. I
And so,
am. I'm like, okay, I'm keeping my side of the vows. What happened on yours?
yeah,
So it is just a wild thing that my brain instantly went to. And it wasn't a thought. It wasn't a conscious thought, we'll say. It wasn't well, I'm going to think this through logically. There was no logic. When you go through trauma and you go through pain, logic's not involved. It is just
sure,
the experience that your body goes through, that your emotions go through. So I think that that was the space of complete shock was number one, right? Like when it first happens, you're in complete shock. What just happened? Why did this happen? I want answers. I don't get it. I can't comprehend. Like, so I went into this big shocks phase first and saying, how can this happen? What happened? I don't get it. And then I went into probably like a depression where I would want to just be in my bedroom, have the lights out, the blinds closed, didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to talk to
mhm,
anyone. Yes, I had kids, so did they get fed or off to school? Yes. Other than that, I was like out of commission. I wasn't a functioning human, right? Like I couldn't process what happened. You're just having like trying to flash back every day to month to year of time, and you're like, where did this happen? How did
mm,
I go wrong? Like, so that I went into how did I go wrong? What,
sure,
and then I went into another phase where I was extremely angry at him, right? I was super
sure.
angry. And for me growing up, I don't know if it's like you, but anger wasn't a typical female, feminine emotional response.
Mhm.
My
You gotta be
parents didn't,
nice, right? You gotta be nice. Just
right?
be nice.
Yeah, I had to be a nice girl.
Ah, yeah.
I was a good girl. I was a nice girl. It's almost like what, my parents love them dearly, but it's like what they would have expected of me. Or in my community or at school, like to be the good girl was.
Sure,
So I think I probably experienced anger at a level 2 or level 5 up to that point in my life because it wasn't something I was like really allowing myself to access. Well, now that my world's been blown apart, I was experiencing anger at like a level 10,
yeah,
and every day I was feeling it at a level 10. So it was so intense inside of me. And it's like, what do you do with all that emotion, right? Like, because I've never experienced it before. So half the time it felt like an out of body experience. Like, who am I? Because I don't know what to do with all of this emotion. So,
oh yeah,
so yeah,
yeah. I can see it. I can feel it too because it's like, when you have a betrayal, you the betrayal can build up. Um, it can build up resentment, and then the resentment creates the resistance, and then the resistance creates the revenge. And as females, typically, maybe, not all females, but typically, because of the conditioning, that revenge gets turned inward. It has to be me. I have to be the problem. I'm going to begin to reject myself and take this out on me instead of expressing, maybe we go and like throw things at the wall, at one of those little centers where you can go and break things and let that rage out. Because, I mean, you have every right, in my mind anyways, to be completely upset at the situation and what was happening. But then you internalized it is what I'm hearing, and not really knowing where to go with this. So then what? Like, what do you do?
right. So that was a huge space for me, like to be like, I'm lost. Like that's why I was like, I don't know. I think it was like a mix of these emotions kind of blending at once. So it's like the depression and the anger. And I don't know if I combined the two because I didn't know where to go for an outlet. Right. So
Sure.
anger turned inward is depression. So it's like I was
Sure.
in that space until I, sought help. But up to that point, didn't know what to do and I didn't even know who to talk to. I didn't want to talk to anyone, right? Because I didn't have words to come out of my mouth. I think I would just cried or said like I'm really upset or but I didn't even know the language to use to describe such big feelings. Like
Wow.
so lost.
Yeah. Okay. So you have this and you have this situation, but obviously you're on the other side of it now.
Yes. Yes.
So what
So
does
first
that
of
look
all,
like in between?
yeah,
Tell
there's
me
the in
about the
between. Yes,
process.
totally. So I will say, I guess I missed the thing of like what physically it was affecting me as well, right?
Yeah.
Because our trauma doesn't just evaporate. It affects
It's
our body.
stored.
It's
Hmm.
stored. And so I can say that it's like somehow we know things before, like our body knows before we do. So
Sure.
before I had any evidence or proof of anything that had gone on in my marriage, I had 3 hernias.
Oh,
And so I'm someone who my anxiety or stress would be in my stomach, abdomen area. So I'm like, well, no wonder I had 3 hernias. Like
wow.
it all made sense. I know exactly where it went in my body.
Sure.
And then, when my husband disclosed what had happened, all of that, I wasn't able to sleep. I struggled with eating because I wasn't even hungry and I couldn't keep food in. And so I lost 25 pounds rather fast, just and not in a healthy way, right? Like I was not at all in a healthy space. So totally affects you physically. There's no way, I don't think that it can't, right? Like,
Mhm.
of course, trauma is going to affect you that way. So I will say there was that side. And of course, and then eventually there were financial complications and stuff like that, and two separate households for our kids, mine and his.
Sure.
So it's like the way it affected my life was all of it. And I think
Yeah.
I looked at it as emotionally like my dreams were shattered.
Oh,
I didn't expect this. I didn't want this. I didn't go into this at 23, thinking that this would ever happen in my life. So it was,
yeah.
like the shattered dreams that I was the girl who was going to get married and be married for 50 or more years, right?
Yes.
Like I, had all the fairy tale dreams and all the things I thought were true or possible for me. So I think that it was like all of that was the space of what is happening. So yes, so that's
Yeah.
I guess the summation of how it affected me. Um,
Yeah. I want to go back
yeah,
to the
go ahead.
knowing.
Oh
The,
yeah.
like your body is sensing, right? Because we are, we do have that capability as humans to sense those things. So your body is sensing something is off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So relationally, even though he's physically in the house, somehow your body is sensing he's not emotionally in the house. But yet
Yes,
you haven't, at this point, you have no idea what's going on, really. You're like, something's off, but I don't quite know what.
exactly. And I think that's a great place to look because as women, we have that deeper knowing as well, our
Mhm.
intuition, our guidance, insight, like we know things. And there were red flags, but unfortunately, what often goes along with this kind of stuff is gaslighting and things that you're like, what you think you're seeing, the other person is saying that's not true, that's not reality, and you're like, okay, I guess it's not, and like things are spinning,
Yeah.
like, and
Can you give
so,
an example? Because like if you're somebody that you have no idea, like, what this is, what would be an example of something where you were being gaslit, like something you knew deep in you, but yet
well,
were,
there might have been a charge on a credit card, and I would ask about it. It didn't make sense, whether it was the city it happened in or whatever the case may be, and I'd be like, huh, that's really strange.
yeah.
And an answer might come back like, oh, we should dispute that charge. It must not be real. Or,
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, or it might be, oh, I purchased it, but that must be where their headquarters are. So that's probably why it was charged in that, it shows that city on your
Sure.
credit card statement. Like there were always a reason. And then um, there was missing time gaps would be another one. Um, when someone is saying that they're one place. This is back before our phones had Life 360, or we had
Sure.
iPhones that could tell you where you're, find my friends, family, whatever. So like there was no tracking devices, right? We didn't have
Right.
that back
Right.
then.
Yeah.
So it was like you took someone at their word. They
Sure.
said, I went to the store, or I went here for work, or I met so and so after work, uh, business colleague, whatever after work. You believe
Yeah.
that that's where they would be. And
Sure.
that's what was happening. So it would be like those types of examples where, obviously I'm not tracking, didn't know,
Yeah.
except there's times that like something didn't add up later on in the story, or, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's funny. You said you went to the gym, but you're still wearing your work clothes, or you're, like something, or, you know what I mean? That type of thing, right? So you're like, you can tell something's off. And if you ask the question, you don't get obviously an honest answer, because in the scenario where there's betrayal going on, it's not just the betrayal, there's lies that go along with it, right? Cover
Sure.
ups,
Sure.
all of that. So with that experience, your brain gets foggy. Like, I swear I just saw that. And it's like smoke and mirrors. Like, no, you didn't. And it's like, but there's a red flag. And so I stopped really trusting myself. Right.
Oh, yes.
So
That
that's
was
why I
good to
believe that
know. Yeah.
I carry the pain anxiety in my gut, because my gut was like trying to tell me things, and I would believe somebody else's
Sure.
external information more than my gut, and ended up with
Mm,
3 hernias in that area. So it's like, oh, of course it makes sense.
yeah.
Like,
The
to add a little levity, just
manifestation
kind of
of it,
laugh, like
right?
this is real, like my body is talking to me. And
Yeah.
it took a long time for me to know that I should listen to it. I didn't know. Like, I really didn't know.
And I just really want to say thank you, Christine, for being so forthright, because, you being so open and honest with what happened to you. I mean, I believe that, there are going to be people listening to this that are going to go, oh, some light bulbs are going to start to go off. And so they're going to be able to really understand. But, so all of that happened and all of it was real. And I want to talk about the healing and the transformation that took place, because this is the portion of your life where I have been a big part of being able to witness. And so it's been beautiful. So I would love for you to share with our audience, what that looked like for you. What did you do? How did you even put one foot in front of the other?
Great question. Thank you. And I would say I started with therapy, because that's the standard go-to thing. And it's a great option, right? To heal trauma. Therapy is a great option. And that is where I started. I did find that it's important to find a therapist that understands your concern, your area of hurt. Because first I went to therapist, I didn't get it. So I felt like I got
Okay.
textbook answers. But then I did end up finding therapy where someone could truly support the exact area I needed help in. So that, I would say, was key. So that was the first step. I also went to a few support groups. So I went to a 12-step support group for codependency,
Okay.
and I went to a Celebrate Recovery, which is like a church version of 12-step. So, and that one was for women who had spouses that were unfaithful. So I went to that group. Um, and that was, so each of those groups were probably at least a year, maybe 2 years. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
really spending quite a bit of time in healing in a community that could understand my space, right? So
Sure.
that was really healing. And I also, at the time I was facing a divorce, um, I hired a life coach. First time
Okay.
I'd done that, I was like, found
Yeah.
out about life coaches, hired a life coach, and said, hey, I'm looking at facing a divorce. I have kids. I have a business. We have, finances, like all these things have to be figured out. And my brain is in a fog. I don't know how to go through this. I do not want to be an angry, bitter, resentful woman at the other side of this. I want to go
Sure.
through this with dignity, class, grace. I want to get to the other
Yeah.
side of this, because I
It's
was
really
like,
beautiful.
yeah, I saw myself in a pit of misery. Like I could picture a pit, and I was like in this bottom of the dirt at the pit. And I was like asking for a lifeline, throw a rope down, please. Like, help
Mhm.
me get to the top of this, because I can't even see the sky. I just see dirt everywhere. And that's really how I pictured it. And I was like, I just need help getting out. I know, if you can help me do that, then that's what I want. And so I did do that. And I will say, my husband at the time, because we were still, married and trying to for sure figure things out, he was supportive of me hiring a coach. He said basically, we either, work together on the marriage still and you need healing, or uh, we go our separate ways, but I would like to co-parent with someone who is not an angry, bitter woman towards me. Like, so he
Yeah.
actually got it, right? He was like, go ahead and go hire the coach because you need this and it's the best thing for you. So that's where we went with on that. And I did love the person I became on the other side of that. So that was huge. And I would say
Yeah.
the last piece of healing that I would say it's probably the biggest piece of transformation really is after so before the divorce, right? But after I had gone through, I told you, like, therapy and a couple different support groups. And so this is like a few years into the healing process, right? I get to a place and I recognize there's still anger and resentment that's like really deep seated, right? It's not like at the surface. You'll see me at the grocery store smiling.
Yeah.
I wasn't depressed anymore. It wasn't that. There was like this
Mm.
resentment. And I consider it, how would I say, that I had an ace in my back pocket. So I'm thinking, like, if you play cards,
Okay.
like ace is
Yeah.
like a trump card that, is better than all the others, right? So I considered I had like an ace in my back pocket. And it was like where I could basically tell my husband at the time, like, hey, anything that I do to upset you, to hurt you, wrong you in some way, it's probably like a level 2 out of 10, a level 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
But you've done a 10 out of 10. So therefore, I have this ace card that anytime I do something wrong, I can say, I'm sorry, slap it down on the table and be like, I guess it's time for you to get over it. It's not as big as what you've done to me.
Oh, wow.
That's how I would
A huge
describe my resentment.
awareness. That's
Yeah,
huge.
that was my version of resentment.
Yeah.
That's what it looked
Yeah.
like. It would come
Okay.
out in a way that, like, a defending myself.
Sure.
Dare you be mad at me? Like, I
Yeah.
have a get out of jail free card. You don't. You've used yours up for your lifetime. You owe me for the rest of your life. Like, I really held it, but on a regular basis, on a regular day, I'm happy and hanging out with the kids and doing other things. So it's not like it's in the forefront anymore, because I feel like
Sure.
I've done a lot of healing work. A lot of layers have been peeled off, but now I'm still dealing with this resentment. And it was actually, we had been, reconciling our marriage at that point. We had separated uh, for 9 months. And then we
Okay.
decided, because we were both doing our individual healing work, decided, let's see if we can give the marriage a chance. We reconciled for a time period, actually 8 years.
Okay.
We worked on reconciling for quite a number of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and so in the middle of that is when there's this realization, this ace card that I'm holding on to is destroying our relationship.
Yeah,
Now
for
I
sure.
am in the
Mhm.
midst of our, reconciling and trying to heal this. I am tearing it apart myself. So I didn't really see that, right? And I would not blame myself. At the time, I would not have said it was my fault. I would said, heck no, it's 100% his fault, and it always will be, right? Like,
Right. He did
however,
this to me. He
yeah,
did it to me. And so therefore I get to wear it like a badge of honor, if
yes,
you will, right? This is
yes,
my little scarlet letter I got on here. And so I get to carry this around and say, well, this happened to me. And
yes,
so I can be this way because this happened to me.
exactly. So I honestly, and it's interesting because at the time I couldn't see it any other way. That's
Mm,
the only way I could view it. Like, I
yeah,
had glasses on that only showed me that
sure.
lens. Couldn't see it any other way. It didn't make any other sense. Like, and what I realized though is I got to the point of I'm tired of holding on so tight. So I feel like it's like tight fists. I had like two tight
Yeah,
fists. Like, I am holding
yeah,
on so tight to what you've done to me. And yeah, this badge of honor. And I am not letting go. And it was exhausting, like, right? Mentally, emotionally,
yeah,
physically. It is tearing me apart. And I don't know how to let it go. I don't know how to, like, grip my hands, like, to release, to let go. And
sure.
I did seek help for that. And when I did, what happened was transformational, like a miracle. Like, I had the experience, and it was a series of steps. It wasn't like a magic pill that you take, right?
Okay. I was gonna say,
It's
like,
not
what
like
is
a diet pill, like you
it?
just go, oh, I'm going to take one diet pill and
Yeah.
now I just lost 20
Mm,
pounds. So it wasn't like that, right? but I did get this support to walk through the steps of emotional forgiveness. So I call it emotional forgiveness. That's my phrase for it. There's spiritual forgiveness, and yes, God is a huge part of all of it, and also a huge part of the emotional release as well. But that emotional release was where I was able to put down my ace card, where I was able to release the resentment, open my clenched fists, and just surrender, just
Mm.
let go. The power in letting go, it's like my whole body just relaxed. Like I didn't have to hold it all together and try to be so strong to just get through the next day. I didn't have to hold on to the anger. Like it was night and day when I finally felt that release. And that is the gift that I think that was the hugest gift that I've given myself in my whole life is
Oh, I
that.
can see that. I can see that. And I see that too, like when people think, oh, if I forgive him, it lets him off of the hook, and I don't want to let him off the hook, but they say that, you know, hanging on to that resentment, hanging on to that anger, that's like you drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I've heard that quote,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's so powerful, right? Because like with that resentment, again, it led to the resistance where you were resistant to even, you were going through the motions of trying to reconcile a marriage, and yet the resistance was still there. Because if you're still hanging on to it, and then ultimately the revenge was turned on you because you started having all these, physical things going on with yourself, and then you're like, I'm not even really happy. Here I am. Not really, because I'm still carrying this around. And what a gift you gave yourself. And then you also gave that gift to your children
Yes.
because you being able to release it and forgive it modeled for them what that looks like. And what a gift, because you could have easily continued and carried it and been spiteful and miserable and not co-parented and not had a relationship with your husband. And you shared some things with me. And I would love for you to share with the audience, like the ways that you beautifully co-parent and you still continue to co-parent with
Ah,
your ex-husband.
yes, yes. I completely attribute the ability to co-parent with him in this way to being emotionally forgiving. And
Hmm.
again, like just like you said, it is not because, like, if you want to say the words, like, at the time I would have said he didn't deserve my forgiveness. Now
Sure.
that's a statement that I felt at the time. Does everyone deserve forgiveness on earth? Yes. So I'm going to say it
Yeah.
like a general statement, but just to say, like, the setting my soul free in this way is
Mm.
what allows me to, have a co-parenting relationship with him. Otherwise, I likely would not, I'd be the person to drop the kids off at the door and turn around and go back, right?
Sure.
And I understand that. So there's no judgment on anyone who is going through that. Yet to get to this space that I'm in, that yes, we do co-parent. And yes, I shared with you that we spend quite a few holidays together. So Thanksgiving, this year, my ex-husband hosted, and I went over there with the kids. And the reason is, like, we're in Florida and we have no other family in the area.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that whoever would have the kids that year or that holiday, we'll just say, that the other person would just be sitting at home. And it's like they're not going to cook up a second turkey dinner on Thanksgiving, for the kids to come to that later, right? So we just decided we can get along and have a turkey dinner together as a family. And then we would
Yeah.
play games with the kids and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Watch football, the standard,
I love it.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
things. And then Christmas, we've done the same thing. We've gone to, Christmas Eve service at church together. And we do our tradition, for our family, which my family always did cheese fondue. So we would do cheese fondue, which we still do. We did it this Christmas together. And
I
then,
love it.
yeah, Christmas morning, he came over to the house while the kids opened presents. And yes, my kids are adults, now,
Right.
with the youngest being 18, turning 19. And yet we're still, in this capacity of co-parenting because we, have joked and said, the part of our vows that till death do us part is true,
Mm,
because we will both be parenting these kids. We will be their parents, right? Whether
right. Absolutely.
whatever version of
Absolutely.
parenting role that looks like when they're adults, but we will co-parent forever. Like, so it, not that we have to be communicating of, all the time, but we still carry that role. So it's like, you know what? I don't want to live that with bitterness and anger inside. That only hurts me.
Yeah. It's so beautiful though. I mean, I the majority out there, right, that haven't gone through the forgiveness process. They wouldn't even begin to think about going through the forgiveness process. And so they don't necessarily recognize that the person they're really hurting is themselves. And if there are children, they're hurting them in that process as well. And you um, are currently, um, you had launched a forgiveness um, group classes, right? So tell the audience just a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure, happy to. So, yes, the new program, this is a course that, yeah, it was pretty much like a download to me that I just sat down and quickly one day started writing things up. And it turned out to be an outline. Had no idea that I was creating a course. I was like, I think this looks like an outline to a course, and filled it in with all the stories and examples of each of the little items, each module, each concept that I went through, each topic around, anger and forgiveness and boundaries and all the pieces of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've created a course. And then the next thing you know, there's videos and worksheets and all of it created together. And this course is called Forgiveness to Freedom.
I
It is
love it.
really about accessing that freedom. And I know I've had women I've talked to that have said, I don't like the word forgiveness. In fact, it's like an
Mm,
F word to me. I don't like it. And that's okay. So if that's where you are, that is okay. That is normal. I felt that way at one time. I thought betrayal was a better word than forgiveness, because that's what I knew was like, that was to me a fact. Forgiveness was confusing, right? Because
sure.
like you said earlier, it's like saying he gets off free, but by me saying he's forgiven, or uh, it's like accepting the way what he did and that it's okay. No, no, it's not okay. So it's not at all that. So we redefine forgiveness in this course as
Yeah.
well, about what forgiveness really is and what we get to decide how we define it. We go through all the pieces around it to really dive in and look at our emotions and look at how it's affecting us, all of these pieces. And as we go through that, there is this huge release to letting go of all the different layers, all the different pieces that we hold on to tightly, like I held on to tightly with my ACE card,
Yeah.
and about how to lay that down, how to let that go to get to that place of emotional forgiveness. And that is what gives us access to freedom, to setting your soul free. And that when someone else has hurt us like that, we're giving them power when we stay a victim to it, when we hold on to that pain. If when we let that go, we are no longer the victim.
Right. They don't get to hold it on, hold on to that kind of over your head, if you will. And I see that. I just think of so many different areas in our life where forgiveness is necessary, but not always given. And it is like, if you were to go out and poll the masses, and people would say, right, oh, I'm not letting them off the hook. I'm going to make them pay, right? That I'm going to make them pay. But that I'm going to make them pay mentality, all it does is hurt you and teach your children to hang on to things like that too, what, can ultimately affect them. And, um, I just want to say, I celebrate you for, the progress that you've made, for the creation, for developing this program and bringing it to the masses. And, if anybody in the audience listening, if this is you, be sure to reach out to Christine. And how you can find Christine is,
Well, you can find me on Facebook with I have a Facebook group, Go Getters, Leaders, and Entrepreneurs Overcoming Betrayal. You can also find me, Christine Woryn, on Facebook and also on Instagram. And I will say also, and I think there'll be a link here with this podcast sharing how to access this course. And actually, I have a website, christineworyn.com. And With that, this group coaching that I talked about, the Forgiveness to Freedom, it includes weekly group coaching. So we're actually talking about the things, not just seeing a video online. It's more
Sure.
than that. And there are also a couple of individual coaching sessions as well. So there's packed with support that wraps around the entire program. So it's not just sending you off on your way and hope you figure it out. So it's all about being together and in community, and you get that opportunity to have that support. And some people I've talked to say they would prefer to keep it really private because they were like me when I didn't want to talk about it with anyone. They wanted it a secret. They were like, I can't share it with everyone else. And they had the opportunity also. So if you're someone like that, you have the opportunity to talk to me one-on-one to work through the healing journey as well.
Oh, I love that. It's so beautiful. So out of all of it, out of everything and all the wisdom that you've gained through this whole process, what's one like golden nugget that you can share with the audience? The thing that you like kind of hold really close to your heart that you're like, yes, this was the big thing out of all of this.
Oh, a couple things come to mind. So I'm trying to think. But when we forgive the unforgivable, or when we forgive our greatest pain, we're truly set free. So it is not about the other person. Like if you want to set yourself free, like, and freedom looks like you're glowing, like you're just
Yeah.
so alive again. Like the past is gone. Did I forget it? No, my brain still works, but it is not part of who I am today. It is not my identity. I don't hold that as my identity any longer. And that is the biggest shift. And the
Mm,
only way I would have gotten there is by getting help and getting support. I couldn't have done it alone. I didn't know how. Nobody could have taught me how. My parents couldn't have taught me how. They had no idea. They didn't go through this. So getting the support and investing in that for me, life changing.
oh yeah, so beautiful. Um, I think as women too, we want to believe we can just muscle through it. And I think there's men out there too, right? Well, I can do this, right?
Yeah.
But we do need having someone to walk the journey with you is so beneficial. And it's actually that is where the transformation comes in, right? When somebody walks that journey with you, they can help you see the blind spots that you can't see alone because you are looking through a certain lens, right? It's like if my lens is just this one, and I got my horse blinders on, um, the opportunity to move through it really starts to go down. But when you take somebody with you and walking the journey with you, then you can move through it quicker, and have more success. And I just thank you for coming on here and being so honest. I will have all of Christine's information in the show notes. So if you're interested in reaching out, go ahead and check the show notes. I highly advise, getting in contact. She has walked the walk. She definitely knows what she's talking about. So, anything else that you want to add, Christine, in these
Thank
last?
you. Well, I want to say thank you because I agree completely with what you were saying. I mean, just about how, I mean, I shared a couple examples of where I had the blinders on. I could not see life any differently. Like it didn't register as possible. And I think that's what happens to us, especially in trauma, especially in those really hurt spaces. It's not like we're going, oh, well, there's an option A and B and C and D. No, all the options were crossed off.
Yeah.
So I think that's the space that it's like to have that support and know that it's a non-judgmental space. It is a safe space. And to be held in a safe space to heal is life-changing. So yeah, I think that that's the beauty of it. So thank you so much. I love your heart. Corinne, you
Thank
have
you.
the beautiful soul. You hold space so beautifully. Like this.
Thank you.
Yes, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and being a guest on The Secret Keepers.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.